Welcome back, everyone, to season 4 of the Truth and Freedom podcast, where awakening begins with asking the question most people are afraid to ask. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Amzalag, and this is not just another podcast. This is a journey into awareness, courage, and truth. Now, freedom is one of the most celebrated words in our culture and one of the most avoided experiences. People say they want freedom, but what they often want is relief from pressure, not responsibility for choice. Control feels heavy, but it's familiar. Freedom feels open, and openness can feel like danger to a nervous system that learns safety through structure, authority, or certainty. So many people don't choose control because they love it. They choose it because it feels predictable. Control tells you what to do, who to be, and who to blame when things goes wrong. It gives you rules to follow and roles to play. Freedom takes those away and asks a terrifying question. What are you choosing and why? That question has no shield, no authority to hide behind, no system to blame. And for many, that level of authorship feels overwhelming. Now, most people were not taught how to self-direct. They were taught how to comply, perform, and adapt. So when freedom appears, real freedom, not symbolic freedom, it creates anxiety. Choice requires clarity. Clarity requires honesty. And honesty often reveals how much of our lives have been built by default rather than by the intention. At Truth and Freedom podcast, we don't romanticize freedom. We talk about its cost. Freedom requires self-regulation. It requires discernment. It requires the capacity to tolerate uncertainty without rushing to fill it with dogma, identity, or control. That's why people often trade freedom for certainty without realizing it. Certainty feels safer than ambiguity, even if it limits growth. Control is comforting because it reduces inner conflict. When someone else defines the rules, you don't have to confront your contradictions. Freedom forces you to reconcile what you value with how you live. It exposes where your words and actions don't align. And that exposure can feel like a threat before it feels like empowerment. Engaged listeners here like you already sense this tension. You probably noticed moments where freedom felt heavy rather than liberating. When no one was telling you what to do. When you couldn't outsource responsibility. And when the next step wasn't obvious. That discomfort isn't failure. It's a training ground for sovereignty. Now, freedom doesn't mean chaos. It means coherence. It means your inner authority becomes stronger than external pressure. It means you choose integrity over convenience, truth over belonging, and alignment over approval. And those choices can feel isolating at first because freedom separates you from system and relationship that thrive on your compliance. Now, this podcast exists to support that separation without bitterness. To remind you that stepping out of control doesn't require rebellion. It requires presence. You don't have to fight the system to be free. You have to stop letting it replace your conscience. When freedom is practiced, something quiet but profound happens. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting to be told who you are. You stop blaming circumstances for choices you're afraid to own. And in that ownership, fear slowly gives way to trust, not in the world, but in yourself. So if freedom feels unsettling right now, let that be information, not judgment. It's showing you where your capacity is expanding. Stay here. Stay honest. Stay willing to choose without guarantees. Because freedom may scare people more than control, but it's the only place where truth can actually live. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this episode of Why Freedom Scares People More Than Control. So in our next episode, we will cover the why you don't need more motivation, you need fewer excuses. So avoid wasting your time and money with the so-called fake gurus out there trying to brainwash you with motivational strategies by selling their books or coaching programs. Focus more on your root cause of lacking motivation, which is expanding your excuses library. If you're one of the millions out there looking to get rid of excuses you've settled for, you wouldn't want to miss this episode. Until then, my friends, stay awake, stay grounded, and stay free.